All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving into the world of pangolins, a creature you might not know much about, but that's about to change. These fascinating animals, believe it or not, are the most trafficked mammals on Earth. Can you believe that?
It's hard to believe, but it's true.
And here's another mind blower. They're the only mammals on the planet with scales. Talk about unique.
Yeah, imagine like a walking pine cone, but way cooler, with this incredibly long tongue, lapping up ants. That's your pangolin. And today, we're going to be taking you deep into their world using a video that focuses on pangolin rehabilitation in Mozambique.
You know, I've always been intrigued by those biodiversity hotspot places. Gorongosa National Park, where this video takes
Yeah.
place, is one of them, right?
It is.
It's like a mini Amazon teeming with all sorts of life. But it's not just about the animals, is it?
You hit the nail on the head. It's this incredible tapestry of animals, plants, and people, all interconnected in a delicate balance. And at the heart of it all is Elias Mubobo, a veterinarian who's leading the charge in pangolin rehabilitation at the park. His work is truly inspiring.
I'm already picturing him out there like a
Yeah.
pangolin whisperer. So these scales, they're the pangolin's armor, their defense against predators. But ironically, they're also the reason they're poached.
Unfortunately, yes. It's a tragic paradox, isn't it? These scales, which have evolved over millions of years to protect them from lions and leopards, are now their biggest threat. The demand for them in traditional medicine is so high that up to 200,000 pangolins are poached every year across Africa and Asia. Just let that number sink in for a moment.
Wow, 200,000. It's hard to even grasp the scale of it. But I'm curious, what kind of traditional medicine uses pangolin scales? And is there any scientific basis for it?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of the issue. Some cultures believe pangolin scales have medicinal properties, but there's absolutely no scientific evidence to support that. It's all based on superstition and unfounded beliefs.
So it's essentially like a placebo effect,
Right.
but with devastating consequences. For these animals, that's so disheartening. But I understand there's hope. Tell me about Gorongosa's Pangolin Rehabilitation Center. It's the only facility of its kind in Mozambique, right?
You're absolutely right. It's an incredible beacon of hope for these creatures. They rescue pangolins from the illegal trade and nurse them back to health. But it's not just about physical recovery.
Right, they need to be able to survive
Yeah.
on their own once they're released. So how do they go about preparing them for that?
That's where Elias and his team truly shine. They've created a unique program that focuses on maintaining the pangolin's natural instincts. They want to make sure these animals don't become reliant on humans.
It's like a boot camp for pangolins, getting them ready for the wild again.
Exactly. It's fascinating. They carefully observe their behavior, make sure they can forage for food effectively, and even test their defense mechanisms
Okay.
to ensure they're ready to face predators.
Speaking of foraging, tell me about their diet. What do these guys eat? I know they have a reputation for being anteaters, but how much can they really consume?
Get this, a single pangolin can devour up to 70 million ants and termites in a year. It's like you eating a whole pizza every minute, nonstop,
Yep.
for an entire year. Can you imagine?
Wow, 70 million. No wonder they call them scaly anteaters.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And it just highlights how important they are for the ecosystem. They're like natural pest control.
You got it. They play a crucial role in regulating ant and termite populations. And get this, their digging habits actually help to aerate the soil and create shelter for other creatures. They're like little ecosystem engineers. Okay, I officially hooked. These pangolins are more amazing than I ever imagined. But we need to talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the poacher in the bush. What can be done to protect these incredible creatures? Is there any hope?
There is. Elias firmly believes
Yeah.
that the key to their survival lies in the hands of the local communities.
So grassroots approach is key here. That's really interesting. Tell me more about how they're engaging the communities.
It's about empowering those who live alongside these incredible animals, expert speaker, to become their protectors, expert speaker. Elias and his team, expert speaker, are working tirelessly, expert speaker,
Right.
to educate local communities, expert speaker, about the importance of pangolins, expert speaker, and the threats they face.
That makes so much sense, host speaker. Who better to protect them, host speaker, than the people who share their land? Host speaker. But education is just one piece of the puzzle, right? Host speaker. How do they get the community host speaker? Actively involved host speaker in pangolin conservation.
Well, expert speaker. One of the most effective strategies, expert speaker, has been to establish expert speaker A network of community informants, expert speaker. They've trained local people, expert speaker. To identify signs of poaching, expert speaker. And illegal trade, expert speaker. And to report any suspicious activity, expert speaker, to the authorities.
So host speaker. They've essentially created host speaker. A pangolin security force.
Oh.
Host speaker. That's brilliant. Host speaker. But are people receptive to this host speaker? I mean, host speaker. Poaching can be lucrative, right?
You're right, expert speaker. It's a complex issue. Expert speaker. But here's the thing, expert speaker. Elias and his team understand expert speaker. That conservation can't succeed, expert speaker, without addressing expert speaker, the economic needs of the community.
Okay, host speaker. So it's about finding host speaker. Alternative livelihoods, right?
Yeah.
Host speaker. Giving people away. Host speaker. To support themselves, host speaker, without relying on poaching.
Exactly, expert speaker. They've been working with local communities, expert speaker, to develop sustainable income-generating activities, expert speaker, like beekeeping and ecotourism, expert speaker. It's about creating expert speaker, a win-win situation, expert speaker, where both people and pangolins, expert speaker, can thrive.
That's such a smart approach, host speaker. It's not about demonizing poachers, host speaker, but about giving them host speaker, a viable alternative host speaker. I'm really impressed, host speaker, by the holistic approach they're taking, host speaker. But let's shift gears a bit, host speaker. You mentioned earlier, host speaker, that the Rehabilitation Center, host speaker, focuses on maintaining host speaker, the pangolin's natural instincts, host speaker. Can you give me an example, host speaker, of how they do that?
Absolutely, expert speaker. One technique they use, expert speaker, is called sensory enrichment. Expert speaker. They create environments, expert speaker, that mimic the pangolin's natural habitat, expert speaker, with different textures, smells, and sounds, expert speaker. They even provide them expert speaker. With puzzle feeders, expert speaker, which require them, expert speaker, to use their foraging skills, expert speaker, to get their food.
Oh, that's cool. Host speaker. It's like a brain workout for pangolins. Host speaker. But it's not just about keeping them host speaker, mentally stimulated, right? Host speaker. They also need to be physically prepared, host speaker, for the wild host speaker. How do they address that?
Well, expert speaker. They have spacious outdoor enclosures, expert speaker, where the pangolins can practice expert speaker, their climbing and digging skills, expert speaker. And here's something really interesting, expert speaker. They actually use scent trails, expert speaker, of termites and ants, expert speaker, to encourage the pangolins, expert speaker, to follow their natural foraging instinct.
Wow, host speaker. So they're basically setting up host speaker. A pangolin scavenger hunt. Host speaker. That's brilliant. Host speaker. But you know, host speaker, releasing them back into the wild, host speaker, must be nerve-wracking, host speaker. How do they know host speaker? When a pangolin is ready.
They have a strict protocol in place, expert speaker. The pangolin has to be in good physical health, expert speaker. Of course, expert speaker. They monitor their weight, expert speaker. Make sure they're free of parasites, expert speaker. And check for any injuries.
Okay, host speaker. So the physical checkup is crucial, host speaker. But what about their behavior, host speaker? How do they assess that?
They look for signs, expert speaker, that the pangolin is exhibiting its natural instincts, expert speaker, like foraging, effectively, expert speaker, using its defense mechanisms appropriately, expert speaker, and showing a healthy fear of humans, expert speaker. They want to make sure, expert speaker, they're fully equipped, expert speaker, to navigate the challenges of the wild.
That makes sense, host speaker. You wouldn't want to release a pangolin, host speaker. That's too comfortable around people, host speaker. It would be like sending a lamb, host speaker, into a den of wolves, host speaker. But okay, host speaker. So they're healed, host speaker. They've passed their behavioral assessment, host speaker. They're ready to go, host speaker. But just tossing them back out there, host speaker, seems risky, host speaker. What happens next?
You're right, expert speaker. They don't just fling open the gates, expert speaker,
Okay.
and wish them luck, expert speaker. They use a process, expert speaker, called a soft release, expert speaker, which allows the pangolin's, expert speaker, to gradually acclimate, expert speaker, to their new environment.
Ooh, host speaker. A soft release, host speaker. Tell me more about that host speaker. What does that involve?
They typically start, expert speaker, by moving the pangolin, expert speaker, to a large enclosed area, expert speaker, within the park, expert speaker. This gives it a chance, expert speaker, to explore, expert speaker, and adjust to the sights, sounds, and smells, expert speaker, of its natural habitat, expert speaker, while still being protected.
So host speaker. It's like a halfway house for pangolins. Host speaker, and then all that. Host speaker. Do they just eventually open the enclosure, host speaker, and let them wander off?
Not quite expert speaker. It's a carefully monitored process expert speaker. They track the pangolin's movements expert speaker. Observe its behavior expert speaker. And make sure it's finding food and shelter expert speaker. And here's where technology comes into play expert speaker. They often fit the pangolin's expert speaker with radio transmitters expert speaker, which allow them to monitor their movements remotely.
Oh, wow, host speaker. So they're like host speaker, pangolin private investigators, host speaker, following their every move. Host speaker. That's incredible. Host speaker. But I imagine that data host speaker is valuable for more host speaker than just keeping tabs host speaker on the released pangolins, right?
Absolutely. Expert speaker. It helps them gather valuable information expert speaker. About pangolin behavior in the wild expert speaker, their home range expert speaker, their foraging patterns expert speaker, and even their social interactions expert speaker. This information is crucial, expert speaker, for informing future conservation efforts.
So host speaker, it's like they're creating host speaker, a pangolin GPS map host speaker, paving the way for future generations. Host speaker, that's so cool, host speaker. But you know host speaker, as much as I love hearing about the success stories host speaker, I can't help but think about the pangolins host speaker that don't make it host speaker. What happens to those host speaker that are too badly injured host speaker or traumatized to be released?
That's a really important question, expert speaker. Sadly, expert speaker. Not all pangolins, expert speaker, that arrive at the center, expert speaker, can be returned to the wild expert speaker. Some have suffered, expert speaker. Such severe injuries, expert speaker.
Yeah.
Psychological trauma, expert speaker. That they require lifelong care.
Oh, host speaker. That's heartbreaking, host speaker. But I imagine the center host speaker provides a sanctuary for them, right?
Exactly, expert speaker. The center becomes their forever home, expert speaker. And they receive the best possible care, expert speaker. With specialized diets, expert speaker. Enrichment activities, expert speaker. And regular veterinary checkups.
It's comforting to know host speaker. They're not just forgotten host speaker, but shifting gears a bit. Host speaker. We've talked a lot about host speaker. The on-the-ground efforts in Mozambique host speaker. But this illegal wildlife trade host speaker is a global issue, right? Host speaker. What can those of us host speaker who aren't living in Africa host speaker do to help protect pangolins?
That's such a crucial point, expert speaker. We all have a role to play, expert speaker. No matter where we live, expert speaker. The first step is simply expert speaker. Raising awareness.
I can get behind that host speaker. I mean host speaker. Before this deep dive host speaker, I knew next to nothing about pangolins. Host speaker. So yeah, host speaker, getting the word out is huge, host speaker. But what else can we do?
Well, expert speaker. Think about the products you buy, expert speaker. Traditional medicine is a major driver, expert speaker, of the demand for pangolin scales, expert speaker. So being a conscious consumer, expert speaker. Reading labels, expert speaker. And avoiding products, expert speaker, that contain pangolin parts, expert speaker, can make a real difference.
So host speaker. It's like voting with your wallet, host speaker. Supporting companies, host speaker. That are ethical and sustainable, host speaker. It's amazing to think, host speaker. That our everyday choices, host speaker, can have such a ripple effect, host speaker. What are some other ways, host speaker, we can help?
Supporting organizations, expert speaker. Working on pangolin conservation, expert speaker. It's huge, expert speaker. Donating to reputable groups, expert speaker. Like the IUCN Pangolin Specialist Group, expert speaker. Or the African Pangolin Working Group, expert speaker. Can help fund research, expert speaker. Anti-poaching efforts, expert speaker. And community outreach programs, expert speaker. Even a small donation, expert speaker, can go a long way.
That's great, host speaker. It's like crowdfunding for conservation. Host speaker. And I guess spreading the word host speaker is crucial too, right? Host speaker. Sharing information on social media, host speaker. Talking to friends and family about pangolins.
Absolutely, expert speaker. You never know, expert speaker. Who you might inspire, expert speaker. To take action, expert speaker. And don't underestimate, expert speaker, the power of your voice, expert speaker. Contact your elected officials, expert speaker, and urge them to support expert speaker. Stronger wildlife protection laws.
You know, host speaker, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, host speaker, by these global issues, host speaker. Like you're just one tiny person, host speaker, in a sea of problems, host speaker. But hearing about the work, host speaker, that Elias and his team are doing, host speaker, it's a powerful reminder, host speaker, that individuals can make a difference.
Right, expert speaker. It's about finding your own way. Expert speaker. To contribute, expert speaker, whether it's through education, expert speaker, activism, expert speaker, or simply making expert speaker. More informed choices, expert speaker, in your daily life.
Well said, host speaker. And I think that's a perfect note to end on, host speaker. This deep dive has been hosted